Imagine a bank that goes where you go, creating seamless solutions for every step in your financial journey, allowing you to manage your money the way you want to, with a banking relationship that makes every day extraordinary. Imagine a world full of possibilities, always within reach. Central Bank. We do banking better.
The Walnut Street Inn is located in the heart of Springfield on historic Walnut Street, just blocks away from the Missouri State Campus, Hammonds Field, Great Southern Arena, and downtown Springfield. The Walnut Street Inn features newly remodeled rooms, breakfast served daily, and a friendly, accommodating staff. The Walnut Street Inn is also a great venue for private events. Book your stay or get more information at walnutstreetinn.com or call 417-864-6346.
Hey, welcome back to the Missouri Sports Network, MissouriSportsNetwork.com, where everyone has a home field advantage. And as always, brought to you by Liuna, Labor's Local 663, who reminds us, drive safely in those work zones. Those folks want to go home to their families as well. We go 100 miles, right at 100 miles, northwest of the studio here to the eight-man football defending state champion, Archie Whirlwinds, and head coach Drew Smith. Coach Smith, thanks for your time today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Coach, talk a little bit about, obviously we're almost 2 weeks into the fall practices. Tell us how it's gone for the Whirlwinds.
Well, we're trying to figure our way through this thing. We got a lot of new people getting into some roles. We had about 5 seniors graduate from last year's team. The good news is that we have the potential to replace those guys with players that are very good and capable of stepping in. It's just about trying to find our niche and what's going to work for us and what our identity is going to be this year with some of those new guys and honestly just kind of learning from the players that we have now and just seeing what works and what doesn't work. So that's our biggest thing right now is just kind of remembering that we're not last year's team. This is a brand new team for us. Even though we do have a lot returning, we have enough new pieces that we got to be able to figure it out and kind of put this jigsaw puzzle together.
Coach, what's the summer been like? What do you guys do over the summer? You go to, I don't know if 8-man football has 7-on-7s, but what do you do over the summertime?
Well, we do have 7-on-7. It's called 5-on-5. We did go to a 5-on-5 session over in our neighbor Drexel, which is about 10 miles from us. So we went to about 3 sessions there in July. We don't really do anything in June because most of our athletes are dual sport athletes, so they're busy with basketball. But we start kind of picking things up a little bit in July with some 5-on-5, 7-on-7 stuff. And then we went to a team camp in middle of July up to East Atchison, way up by Iowa. We went there for a week, weekend. And then we host a team camp of our own at the very end of July with about 8 or 9 different teams coming. So we don't do a whole lot in June, early July, but then it really starts picking up about mid-July on. We're pretty busy with football activities.
And Coach, and again, we're visiting with Drew Smith, the Archie head football coach. And Coach, tell us a little bit just about your background. How long have you been at Archie? Where did you go to high school, college, and how did you end up at Archie?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is going to be my 5th year at Archie. I got into education about 8 years ago up at Princeton, Missouri. Followed a buddy of mine up there to get into coaching. We coached up at Princeton for about 4 years, 11-man football up there. My wife is from the Kansas City area, so we wanted to kind of get closer to her family. So we kind of packed up and left. And it was right during the middle of COVID when all this happened and Archie was open. And I applied, got the job, told them I might be a better assistant than head coach because I have never seen an 8-man game in my life. And I know football, but I know there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve. So I wanted to give them a heads up. And they said, well, if you want the job, you got to be the head coach. So I took the job and kind of haven't looked back since. We've been 10-2, 10-2. 11-1 or 12-1, and then 14-0 this last year. So we've been pretty successful since we've been here. So, well, I went to college. Sorry, I forgot to say that. I went to college at Southwest Baptist University up and down in Bolivar. Um, Graduated with an exercise science degree. Didn't do anything with that. Got into teaching instead. So that's a
Well, that's
little
funny
bit
you
of a
mentioned.
synopsis of me.
Funny you mentioned that. I probably am a 9-iron from Southwest Baptist University's football field, where
Oh
my
yeah.
house is. So I've been here in Bolivar about 30 years. Um, Coach, you talked about the learning curve a little bit. What was maybe the toughest thing to learn?
Two things. Everything hits quicker. Everything hits about a gap quicker, and you're always going to you are always going to feel like you're a man short on defense. You don't have that odd number, that safety kind of back, and just to say like, okay, well, if all else fails, we got a safety back there that's going to keep it for a 10-yard gain. Um, so those are the two biggest things that I've had to learn to kind of be comfortable with. Not all the plays that I brought over from 11 man translates really well to 8 man. There is a bit of a learning curve. They can still work. You just have to be able to adapt them and just realize that buck sweep isn't going to hit out wide, or have that nice little cut up that you want, because it's gonna look a little bit more like a power scheme, if you want. You can run it, but it's just going to look a little different defensively. Um, you got to practice a ton of open field tackling. You got to be really good at open field tacklers. So those are the two biggest things that I stress to any new coach that's coming into 8 man that I've had to learn, that's been passed on to me. So I like to pass that on to someone else.
Coach, talk about, are you a member of a conference? And if so, kind of talk about that conference a little bit.
Yes, we are part of the WEMO conference. Don't ask me what it stands for. I just call it the WEMO conference because that's what everyone else calls it. We got 8 other teams in our conference. 7 other teams, sorry. And then Um, we have won our conference the last 2 years, and then we lost it the first 2 years to a Drexel just down the road from us. They won the state championship a few years ago, and then they lost in the semifinals my first year here. So they were a pretty good ball team.
Very good. And as you look at your schedule, you open up at Lockwood. Is that schedule pretty much very similar to the schedule you've had since you've been there, or are there any additions or subtractions?
So yeah, when I first got here, Lockwood wasn't on the schedule. They were still 11 man. So that is a new one. But this is our second year in a row, I believe, maybe third year, having Lockwood on our schedule. This is our, I think, third year now, opening up the season with them. But we've had to drop some teams just because distances, or with the expansion. Honestly, with the expansion of 8 man football in Missouri, a lot of teams have gone from independent conferences to now having a conference, and then now they have to schedule their conference games first. And so that means they had to drop us. So we've probably maneuvered around about 3 or 4 different teams, but now we're pretty set in stone about who we play. On a fairly consistent basis. Well, every year we probably had to have picked up at least one new opponent. But Lockwood is always a great first game for us because they're extremely well coached. They're a hard-nosed football team. They play well. They play hard. And so it's nice, kind of it's nice and it's not nice kind of coming in. First game of the year, you always know you're going to have a good opponent your first game, so you better be ready for it. That's nice for as the coach telling the players, hey, you guys you don't have a cakewalk your first game. You got to be ready to go, to keep their focus. But then it's also like, man, I wish I could see them like week 3 or 4, once we get a feet underneath ourselves. So, but yep, they're a worthy opponent, and I'm extremely excited to go play them.
Now you've got your jamboree Friday night, like everyone else. So where is it and who's involved?
We're hosting Jamboree this year. We have 3 other teams coming. We got Osceola, Rich Hill, and Appleton City. All schools within our conference kind of coming out to us, and we'll have ourselves our Jamboree here.
As you go into a jamboree, and we've done probably 25 interviews here in the last week or 10 days with coaches around the state in several sports. What are your goals going into it? I mean, obviously, and everybody says number one is stay healthy. But what are you looking for here? Of course, you lost 5 seniors, but that may be something. But what's your goals going in?
Goals going in, like everyone says, staying healthy for sure, but then just kind of for us, it's just kind of getting out there and just kind of getting those that routine started. Of hey guys, this is what it looks like when we do a Friday 7 o'clock game routine. This is how we go through our warm ups, our walkthroughs, our bus ride. Well, we don't have a bus ride, but we go through like okay, this is what time we get here. This is the atmosphere is going to be. Get that little bit of excitement out. Work through some basic plays. I mean, our kid knows them. Our kids know them, and now it's just about going out and hitting someone else. And honestly, about adjusting on the fly because we don't have the time to prepare for a three front or an even front. So just going out there and kind of saying, okay, well, we need to work on an odd man front a little bit more, or okay, we got the even front down, so now we got to work on this a little bit. So those are the big things that I like to take away personally. Not really more about like who stands out, who plays. I kind of know who's going to do what. There's always a couple of surprises, but there's not enough plays to really get a good sample size of what someone's going to do. You get that in practice. It's more about just getting into that rhythm, that routine, and seeing what maybe we need to work a little bit more against on up in the front seven for us. So,
Coach, talk about your staff. How many, and how long have they been with you?
Well, I have two assistant coaches. I've got one person that kind of volunteers and helps me up top. So I've got really kind of three people, 2.5, 3 people on our staff. One guy's been with me for 3 years now. He's a former player of mine, so he's been great. He loves the game of football. He is stepping up into the role of defensive coordinator for us this year, so I'm excited for him to grow. And I'm excited that he's a hometown kid that wants to still stay involved with the football team and kind of be that the culture that we're kind of talking about and building, so he can be around the kids and be that positive role model for them. I got another one. His name's Chad Stroud. He is new to us this year. He moved away a couple of years ago and then came back to the district. He's an extremely intelligent football coach. So he's going to be our offensive and defensive line guy, and I'm extremely blessed to have him. But he's our first year on staff. And then my booth guy, this will be his second year helping us up top in the booth. So not a huge staff. I'd always like to have a couple more guys, but not always the case.
Very good. Well, Coach, I appreciate you being generous here with your time on the Missouri Sports Network. If there's anything that we can do, if you've got kids you want to promote or programs or situations, something like that, we would love to be a part of it and help promote that. But I thank you for being part of this show tonight.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, and I appreciate the coverage. I always like to see the athletes in Missouri kind of get their their time on air. So that's always nice to see.
You bet. You bet. You're watching the Missouri Sports Network at MissouriSportsNetwork.com, where everyone has a home field advantage. Presented by Doak Propane. Doak Propane in Bolivar, Missouri. See the folks at Doak. Also presented by the Bank of Billings. The